Hello team, welcome back to another video with the Mango Method. This is another Mango Musings series where it's just me, the camera, and a few thoughts on business and finance. We won't have any spreadsheets to distract us, it's just purely discussions. If you're new, this series is where we try and take a step back from the technical, the numbers side, and just try and think bigger picture. Try and look to how we manage and think about and plan finance for our business. How do we look at the analysis, and how do we just have a more holistic view beyond just spreadsheets and numbers? While you're here, if you find these discussions or any of our worked examples or model videos or model run-throughs helpful, don't forget to hit the like or subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and it really helps us to, it gives us an idea of what's useful, what's interesting, and helps us to create more relevant content to help businesses all around. Today, we're going to talk about spring cleaning your finances. We're in October. We've just finished the September quarter in Victoria and Australia. At least we're heading into spring. So what often occurs in spring? We do spring cleaning. We clean up the houses after a long cold winter. We sort everything out. We should do that same process for our business. Now, notwithstanding, being disciplined about business and managing business is a consistent thing, but let's just take it as an opportunity to, instigate and catalyze the actual process of just doing a cleanup. So in Australia, spring usually comes right after the budget season. And what's just happened? We've just gone from locking away a budget, locking away a forecast, and that's probably been a busy time for business owners, accountants, finance teams. But now that we've gone through a quarter under that new budget, it's the perfect opportunity to just take stock, just look back and also look forward, because what's also coming is the lead up to summer, Christmas, silly season, that busy time of year. And then over that horizon, we also have that February storm in Australia, depending on the type of business, where it's just that crunch time for cash outflows after the busy period. So we're just going to spend the video just to cover like a bunch of the all of the actual backwards looking stuff, as well as that forward looking stuff, and just kind of covering off on what, as a banker, I often saw and what might be useful to business owners running forward. So let's just start with the basics. So getting the books right, getting the actuals. You've got your first period of actuals happening. So it's the perfect opportunity to look at your accounts, look at your systems, and just do a spring clean of it. Just make sure that, budgets have been set, great. But now we're actually looking at are we tracking things properly? Do we have the right expense being categorized? Do we have old categories that are still in system, even though budgets have been set, that are there but not being used? If we're tracking multiple entities, for example, or multiple zero instances, do we have repeat accounts that are being done inconsistently? There are implications from a modeling side and automation side, but just simple things like ledger accounts or account codes not matching across different entities. Not necessarily a problem if you don't do mapping, but it does help to clean up your finance and your management reporting. Now, having this discipline is super important. It's something that investors and as a banker we will look at. Do you have tidy accounts? Can you regular interval provide me financial reports if it's part of the reporting package? Often it's quarterly or semi-annual or annual. It depends on the size of your business and how much you've borrowed. But if you've borrowed substantially, let's say anywhere between $1 million to $5 million, there is a chance that you'd be asked for quarterly reporting. So not just the reporting, but potentially financial covenant testing to make sure that the business is tracking. So just getting all of this stuff clean means that from a bank, I receive accounts that are done well, tidy, well put together management accounts that don't have significant variances from budgets or significant variances period on period without explanation. Because things happen, and as long as we understand what's happening, that's okay. So yeah, just having that good clean process to tidy up accounts is great. The follow on from that is also from a systems perspective. Are we using software? Are we still using software that we said we wouldn't use as part of the budget? Are we, potentially like using subscription? It's usually a subscription issue. Like there's often subscriptions that were part of the discussion and are still there. It's people just forget to turn the subscriptions off. Likewise, users, checking systems for users and making sure that users that should no longer have access to accounting or banking packages. The amount of times I saw this where very old users that should not have access to systems that might have had access years and years ago are still listed as users. It's just cleaning that stuff. It's around good governance and making sure that the right people have the right access to the right information at the right time. So even something simple like that is so important. And these are things you don't notice until something potentially goes wrong, and that's often too late. So just spend the time, create a process around it, and just do regular checkups. And why not use spring cleaning as the excuse to do a bit of a tidy up. Now, if we move on from that, let's look at the actual performance and just the analysis that might go behind performance. So budgets, you've just finished a quarter. There's your first period of budget variance analysis that you can run, or a first substantial period. Because sometimes month-on-month changes, it's hard to pick up like key movers and drivers. But having a solid quarter, you sort of take away and you smooth out some of the stuff that's going on from month to month. So, it's the time to look at stuff like, are we spending what we should have? Have we, we created a budget with a narrative. Did we spend the stuff that we said we would? Have we overdone it? And as important, have we underdone it? Because, if we've not spent where we said we would, we're potentially shooting ourselves in the foot. Have we not grabbed the right CRM system that we said we would by obsoleting the said stuff that we weren't supposed to? Have we done stuff like actually implemented pricing? So for example, a quarter's gone. As part of the new year, we were supposed to increase prices or unit prices across the board. Has that reflected in our numbers? If not, well, it's usually a good quick sign to pick up and just really identify unit prices. Do you have average revenue KPIs or average revenue per invoice or average revenue product? Like, can you see your averages shifting up from against volume because you had pricing as an assumption? So like the amount of times I've seen this where pricing was part of forecast, but then not implemented, astounding. Other things like not just looking at budget variance against the budget and the actuals, but also looking at prior year. Are the patterns from prior year that caused us to create these budgets for this year, are they missing? Like, is revenue not hitting the mark compared to last year? Last year is usually a pretty good reference. Why, if that's the case? Is it a process issue? Is it a demand issue? It's seeing this stuff creates the catalyst to start going, hey, what's going on? Well, I need the insight. I need to understand what's happening. So that's super important. And also on top of it, having good budget variance processes is also something that helps provide bankers information. So if you have good understanding of your variances and you can have that solid discussion with bankers, it provides comfort to the bankers. Like, things happen and that's okay, but being able to then have that upfront discussion with your banker gives them comfort, gives them the ability to then have that discussion with their credit teams to not do anything rash, to just continue on, to provide extension of covenants, to, being proactive about this stuff is super important in managing banker relationships. So now if we move on from here and we then think about, all right, we're going into Christmas. Christmas is, often the time of the year for business. It's the time where for some businesses, it's a make or break for a business. It's that one period in the year where, sales are happening, well, it could be multiple periods, and this is part of that budgeting process and understanding seasonality for your business. But if this is the time of the year, now's the time where you're leading up into it to make sure that you have the right capacity. Have you got the right headcount, the right staff, the right people, the right systems in place to take on that significant increase in demand that might occur? Have we got the right things in place to deal with it? If we need to order a whole bunch more inventory, have we got the right financing systems in place or financing facilities in place? A sudden influx requirement for inventory, that's a big working capital need. And constantly, back in my banking days, this is the time of year where we get requests where people are like, oh, I need an overdraft, or I need a short-term increase in my loan facilities because we need to do A, B, and C for Christmas or for this busy period. And it's so much more confidence inspiring if you're proactive about these discussions and you can talk to your banker ahead of time. Be prepared. Then you don't pay more interest potentially because you've rushed into a facility. You have the right facility structure with the right repayment structures. It's all about being proactive and ready, and having good, clean discipline to then look ahead. And then, if we think about it further, January, Feb, especially in Australia, that's that February crunch period where there's significant, cash outflow impacts and cash inflow impacts as well. You've got AP teams that are offline, so your clients are potentially paying you slower, blowing out your accounts receivable days. You've got lower trade potentially in that last few weeks of December, in that shutdown period into January, where some businesses don't open until midway into January. And then on top of all of that, now you've got quarter end BAS. If you're on a quarterly basis due in Feb, you potentially have your monthly pay-as-you-go withholding in from January, also due in Feb. Feb is that crazy time. So take this quarter to look ahead, not only at December in the silly season, but also the period after, where potentially you're looking at further working capital strain on the other end, where you're winding down from lower sales. So it's just like, this is that perfect time to really start thinking about getting ready. In the next video, we're going to take a chance to look at forecast to help us plan some of this stuff. So we're going to look at actuals and forecast. So the process of reviewing actuals, looking at forecast, comparing it to variances, and the process that we go through in doing so. Separate to that, we're also going to look at a monthly forecast, so like a three-way model forecast from covering this sort of actuals period through to the crazy, the silly season through December, and then post that into that slowdown period. So, and on top of it, we might look at, maybe in another video, a 13-week cash flow of the silly season, and potentially like how we bridge that silly season into that quiet period. So, look forward to those videos. But yeah, again, let's just do a quick recap. Spring cleaning your finances. It's all about financial discipline, and there's nothing like spring cleaning to just set yourself off or set you off in doing that. So, and again, as a banker or as an ex-banker, seeing good clean accounts, good clean processes, good clean financial discipline, and funnily enough, as a banker who has access or had access to your accounts and your users, often saw users that shouldn't be there. So it's just all of these potential red flags. So just take the opportunity to get prepared, and not just get prepared, but look back and get prepared. Yeah, look, so hopefully this was an informative video. I hope you've learned something. Please leave a comment with any questions or things that we talked about in this video that you disagree or agree with, or agree or disagree with. I would love to hear. And if you have any other ideas that you'd want to talk about, or any other thoughts that you want us to cover from a Mango Musings perspective. Would love to hear it. Yeah, look, until the next video, thanks again for watching and joining us in another Mango Method video.